Welcome to this explainer. You know, if you look around any bustling city today, whether it's London, New York, or Chicago, you're going to see millions of people just working tirelessly. They are climbing corporate ladders, grinding away, and constantly chasing higher salaries. And yet, despite all of this relentless effort, the vast majority of us will actually never achieve true financial security. Why? Well, we've been conditioned by society to believe in this fundamental equation. Hard work equals a higher income, and a higher income automatically equals wealth. But what if that entire premise is just totally flawed? Consider this absolutely startling reality. Roughly 1/3 of individuals earning six figures right now in the US and the UK are still living paycheck to paycheck. No way, right? Today, we're deconstructing the hidden money trap that keeps so many smart professionals frustrated and financially stagnant. We're going to break down the systemic, cultural, and psychological barriers standing right between you and actual financial freedom.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Part 1. The illusion of wealth. So, we all have this tendency to conflate earning power with net worth. We instinctively assume that the person driving that brand new luxury car and living in the upscale neighborhood is, inherently wealthy. But the core thesis of the research we're unpacking today shatters that assumption with a very simple truth. Wealth is about behavior, not income. There's this massive, often completely invisible gap between what you earn and what you actually keep. Think about it. You could be bringing home $500,000 a year, but if you're spending $500,001, you aren't wealthy. You are literally just broke at a much higher tax bracket. Real financial security is usually found in this amazing concept called stealth wealth. It's the millionaire next door who drives a 10-year-old sedan, lives in a completely modest home, and systematically invests the difference. Wealth is exactly what you don't see. It's the upgrades declined, the lavish vacations you decided to skip, and the cash steadily compounding behind the scenes. It's driven almost entirely by daily behavioral choices, completely independent of the actual size of your paycheck.
Which brings us to Part 2, the psychology of spending. Now, to understand why changing those behavioral choices is so incredibly difficult, we have to look at why we act the way we do with money in the first place. We're constantly battling internal psychological traps that are deeply wired into human nature. I mean, our brains are biologically hardwired to seek safety, status, and pleasure. So when our income increases, maybe you snagged a big promotion or made a career leap, we immediately hit a phenomenon known in behavioral economics as the hedonic treadmill. We start subconsciously justifying upgrading our entire lives to match our new earnings. We move into a slightly better apartment, maybe upgrade to a premium car, and start dining at those finer restaurants. And very quickly, our brains adapt to these new luxuries. They shift from feeling like special little rewards to absolute baseline necessities. Because our spending artificially keeps pace with our earnings, our actual savings rate never even moves. It's literally like you're running faster and sweating more, but you are staying in the exact same place on the financial treadmill. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when that psychological treadmill collides with the modern digital age. You get the comparison trap. Social media has completely warped our baseline for what a normal life looks like. It broadcasts this highly curated highlight reel of luxury that applies immense, relentless pressure to keep up. This fear of missing out drives us to spend our hard-earned cash on depreciating status symbols rather than building actual, hidden wealth. In fact, consumer debt in the US and UK has reached staggering trillions, and so much of it is fueled by lifestyle borrowing just to maintain appearances. The tragic result here is a vicious cycle of debt disguised as success. You might look like a multimillionaire to your neighbors and your followers, but behind closed doors, your bank statements are telling a highly stressful story of high-interest loans, maxed-out credit cards, and just relentless financial anxiety.
Moving on to Part 3, Systemic and Cultural Traps.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to recognize that your financial struggles aren't entirely your fault. It's not just our internal psychology working against us. The broader environment is actively rigged against the average earner. You are operating within a system largely designed to extract your wealth rather than help you build it. A glaring example of this systemic failure? The severe lack of practical financial education. Foundational skills like how to budget, market investing, and the magic of understanding compound interest are entirely absent from most traditional school curriculums. And why is that? Well, because a consumer-driven economy relies fundamentally on confident spenders, not prudent savers. We're sending young adults out into a highly predatory, incredibly optimized consumer landscape without any financial armor whatsoever. If you've ever felt super frustrated trying to learn these concepts as an adult, it's because you were literally left to guess. And when you guess with your money, you inevitably make decisions based on immediate stress and emotion rather than long-term logic.
And of course, that lack of foundational education leaves us highly vulnerable to an aggressively engineered instant gratification culture. We are completely surrounded by frictionless spending right now. Just think about how effortless it is to click a button on your phone and have a luxury item delivered to your doorstep in hours. The recent explosion of buy now, pay later services and the relentless availability of easy credit entirely weaponize our biological desires. These tools are meticulously designed to hack your brain's reward center. By delaying the financial pain of the actual payment, they allow you to experience an immediate dopamine hit from acquiring something brand new. They make it dangerously simple to spend money you haven't even earned yet. You're effectively trading decades of your future long-term financial security for a fleeting 5-minute psychological high.
So how do we push past this? Part 4, Overcoming Financial Fear. When you combine a complete lack of education with a culture completely steeped in debt, it breeds a paralyzing fear of doing the wrong thing with the little money you do manage to save. So many hardworking professionals are simply too terrified to let their money work for them in the markets. We end up parking all our cash in traditional, low-interest savings accounts because, well, it feels safe from volatility. But guys, this is a mathematical illusion of safety. Inflation is quietly eroding the purchasing power of that money every single day. By avoiding the perceived short-term risk of investing, you guarantee a long-term loss, and you entirely miss out on the engine of real wealth, compound growth. Let's actually look at the math to put this in perspective. If you save just $200 a month in a standard 0.01% savings account for 30 years, you'll end up with barely over $72,000. But if you invest that exact same $200 a month into an index fund returning a historical average of 7%, you will be sitting on nearly $250,000. Skipping out on compound growth because of fear is undeniably the most expensive mistake you can make.
So, the crucial point is, what do we do about it? Part 5, the behavioral solution.
Understanding all these psychological and systemic traps is really only half the battle. Now we need the actual antidote. If wealth is not about how much you make, but how you act, then the solution is highly practical. We have to fundamentally rewire the habits that society has taught us. Let's break down the execution step by step. First, live below your means. And don't frame this as a restriction or a punishment. Frame it as actively buying your own future freedom. This creates the absolutely essential gap between your income and your expenses. Second, automate your savings. You've got to treat your investments like a mandatory utility bill that gets paid before literally anything else. By automatically routing money to your investment accounts the exact day you get paid, you take human error and impulsive emotion right out of the equation. Third, invest early and consistently. Give compound interest the maximum amount of time to do the heavy lifting for you. And finally, ruthlessly avoid lifestyle inflation. When your income grows, let your savings rate grow with it rather than your wardrobe. Building wealth isn't magic, and it certainly isn't reserved just for the elite. It is entirely about mastering these specific behavioral changes.
So, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. If your income doubled tomorrow, would you build wealth, or would you just build a more expensive cage? Think about it. If you haven't mastered the behavioral psychology we've unpacked today, more money will simply mean a heavier anchor. We're talking more expensive cars, bigger mortgages, and a shinier, much more stressful cycle of debt. True wealth starts in the mind. Take control of your behavior, and I promise you, your bank account will inevitably follow. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.